One narrow stretch of water is capturing the world's attention. The Strait of Hormuz has become the center of rising geopolitical tensions, with the possibility of closures and shipping disruptions creating uncertainty across global markets. At first glance, it may seem like a distant regional issue. Most people immediately think about higher oil prices, and they're right. But that's only the beginning of the story. The real impact goes far beyond oil. It reaches our farms, our supermarkets, our mortgages, our investments, and ultimately, our daily lives. Let me show you how one disruption can trigger a global chain reaction. It begins with the closure or disruption of the Strait of Hormuz. Oil and liquefied natural gas prices rise as supplies become uncertain. Higher energy prices make transportation more expensive, increasing shipping costs around the world. But there's another critical commodity that often goes unnoticed: fertilizer. Nearly 1/3 of the world's seaborne fertilizer trade passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Countries such as Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman are major exporters of ammonia, urea, and sulfur, all essential ingredients for modern agriculture. If these supplies are disrupted, fertilizer prices could surge. That matters because fertilizer is one of the most important inputs for growing food. Without enough fertilizer, wheat yields decline. Corn becomes more expensive to produce. Rice production costs increase. Soybean farmers face higher operating costs. Sugar cane growers are squeezed by rising input prices. Countries that depend heavily on imported fertilizer, including India, Brazil, and many African nations, would experience significantly higher farming costs. Eventually, those higher costs make their way to consumers. Food prices begin to rise. Unlike a temporary spike in petrol prices, food inflation tends to last much longer. Farmers cannot simply grow more crops overnight. Planting seasons are fixed months in advance. Fertilizer contracts are arranged well before seeds are planted. Shipping disruptions may continue for months. And if fertilizer becomes too expensive, some farmers reduce its usage, leading to lower crop yields. The result is persistent food inflation that can last through multiple growing seasons. As inflation spreads across the economy, central banks face a difficult decision. Their primary responsibility is to keep inflation under control. One of the most powerful tools they have is raising interest rates. In fact, several central banks have already adopted a more hawkish stance amid persistent inflation concerns. The European Central Bank has continued tightening monetary policy. The Bank of Japan has raised interest rates to levels not seen in decades. Australia has maintained higher interest rates to combat inflation. Markets expect Norway to continue tightening if inflation remains elevated. In the United States, the Federal Reserve has kept rates high, with expectations that further increases remain possible. The Bank of England has also maintained a cautious stance as inflation risks persist. But what happens when interest rates rise? This is where the economy begins to slow. As borrowing becomes more expensive, consumers cut back on spending. Mortgage repayments, car loans, and credit card interest all increase, causing families to delay major purchases such as homes, cars, and other big-ticket items. Businesses are affected as well. Higher financing costs make expansion less attractive, leading companies to postpone investments, slow hiring, and reduce spending on new projects. The property market also weakens. Higher mortgage rates reduce affordability, slowing demand for homes, and causing construction activity to decline. At the same time, companies face rising operating costs, from wages and transportation to raw materials, while consumer demand weakens. This squeezes profit margins, prompting businesses to freeze hiring, reduce costs, and in some cases, lay off workers. As unemployment rises and spending slows, demand across the economy begins to cool. This is ultimately how higher interest rates help bring inflation back under control, by slowing economic activity enough to reduce demand. And it all begins with a disruption to one narrow waterway. One strait. A global impact. The next time you hear news about the Strait of Hormuz, remember, it isn't just a geopolitical headline. It could be the beginning of a chain reaction that affects every household, every business, and every investor around the world. Understanding these connections is what allows us to prepare, rather than simply react. Because in today's world, one event in one part of the globe can reshape the entire global economy.